Hello to you. My name is Peter, and I am showing you exactly how to get paid as a buyer agent. There are 7 episodes in this series. We are now looking at episode number 2, Make an Appeal. This is all about setting an appointment, getting it ready so that we can demonstrate our value to a buyer and earn a commission. You'll notice that the first 3 videos are for free. The last 4, you have to come to the website, join.realestate, and register. Easy. Now, before we start, I want to define a couple of terms. The words presentation, consultation, and strategy session, they all mean the same thing. So if I use one or the other, I might mix them up between. I do prefer strategy session because sounds better. I mean, who doesn't like a strategy session, especially when it's customized for that buyer? This is the formal event where we sit down and we demonstrate our value to the buyer and ask them to, if all things go well, ask them to be our client and that we can be their agent, and we secure a written agreement and our commission. Also, there are some other terms. Buyer brokerage agreement, also known as BBA. This is the document that we will sign in order to make an agency relationship. I may also refer to this as agency. I may call it an agency agreement, an agency contract. Any of those terms mean the same thing. Now we have tools that we're going to use, and this is the main tool that's going to help us, as well as the buyer mat, which I'll show you momentarily. But the handbook is going to be our friend throughout this. And if you look in the back, I've cut this one open so that we can get a better view and put a laminate sheet over top so that I can draw on it. This is the buyer flow chart. And so this will take you through all the steps to make sure that you are doing it the right way in the right order so that you can make money as a buyer's agent. So if we begin here, then we're going to go to pre-qualify the buyer, and you'll see that each one of these cross-references on here correlates with pages in the book where you see page 170. Or how to pre-qualify a buyer, you see it's there on page 170. So we will know through this. Does the buyer qualify? That's the next question. If no, then you go this way. If yes, will buyer meet for a presentation? If the answer is no, then we're going to use some scripts, and we're going to talk about that here in a moment. If they say yes, then we are going to schedule a presentation for afternoon, and then we're going to give that presentation. So that is the overview of such. I'm going to show you a couple more tools here. This one being the buyer mat. And each of these tools, just so you know, can be found at the website, join.realestate. You can either get them as a box set. They can come a la carte or all together. These tools here, from these, we're going to be discussing in this series, the handbook, the script mat, and the buyer mat. It's a buyer presentation mat. Also at the website, there is a free download. You get 8 tools, and some of these will also be discussed in this video, which is going to be the dashboard, the scorecard for buyers, and the checklist number 1. So here is a look at the buyer presentation mat. You'll see on the reverse side, we're going to do a needs analysis. That's coming up in a couple of videos from now. But just to familiarize yourself, these are all the steps that a buyer would go through in the process of purchasing a home. Step number 1 is going to be to pre-qualify. Step number 2 is that consultation. And then step 3 is to go search for property. You'll see all of these bullet points here. Now, this is a mat that you're going to show to your buyer. You're going to sit with them and you're going to look at it together. And so they may have questions about some of these bullet points. And what's great about this is that they're talking points, and each of them are cross-referenced back to pages in the handbook so that you can study ahead of time and learn what the job is. Neat thing is that this is also laminated so that we can highlight different things. You can use different colors. You can use green, you could use yellow. And so Therefore, if you want to make sure that you stress something and you want to highlight it before you attend your meeting, then that's wonderful. You make sure you don't forget. If you're giving your conversation and explaining this to the buyer and they say, ooh, what about that thing? And it's not time yet for that, you can mark it and make sure you come back and discuss that in detail until they are happy with it. This is the script mat. Whoops. This is the script mat. This is side 2, and it is color coordinated so that we can see where all the different pieces are. This part in green is about simply discovering once you find somebody who's looking to buy or sell property, and you're going to get them into either a buyer, which is in red, or a seller pre-qualification scripting. The red part is for the buyer, the yellow is for the seller. We're going to be concentrating on this top half in just a moment. And then here in purple or pink is the appointment setting script. Now, I know some agents say, oh, I hate scripts. Scripting is easy when you realize that if you are going to have the same conversations frequently, then you just may have a few one-liners so that you are prepared and you can communicate more efficiently with the person who you are speaking with. So before I also go further, I want to introduce, we've got with us on the telephone a new agent. His name is Clint. What's happening, Clint?
Hey, what's going on, Peter?
Man, I'm happy to show you this stuff. But don't hesitate to ask me any questions. And I want you to play both roles here as a new agent who's learning this, as well as the buyer who we may be speaking with. All right, so this top here, it says stranger script. So let's say you got a referral from somebody, and you call them up and you say, hi, this is Peter, the real estate agent. Your friend Bob told me you want to buy a house, and I'm here to help. So, Clint, you're going to be Bob. No, I'm sorry. You're going to be Clint. Your friend Bob told me about you. So, Clint, let me ask you: are you already working with an agent?
No.
No. Wonderful. So we're going to follow this through the buyer path, and it comes up to here, which is that pre-qualification script. So, Clint, let me ask you a question. Do you plan to borrow money for the purchase, or will you be paying cash?
We'll borrow money.
You're going to borrow money.
We'll borrow.
Well, this is exciting. Another thing that I would also do that I just skipped over is to become excited for the buyer. Clint, that's as awesome that you are buying a house. Are you so excited?
Very excited, but a little intimidated to borrow that much money.
Sure, I can understand. Is this the first time you've bought a home, or have you bought and sold a million before?
This will be the first. This will be the first time.
First time home buyer. Fresh meat.
Right.
Okay, so you say you're going to be borrowing money and you're a little bit nervous. That's okay. Clint, would you be offended if I shared your number with my favorite lender? And then she can call you and have a chat?
I don't really like to give out my information. People I don't know.
Sure. No, I understand that. But you are going to be purchasing a home. So, you know, you got to be borrowing money from somebody. You're going to have to talk to somebody about it. And Betsy is a fantastic mortgage officer. She's been doing the job for many years, and she's the one I trust. So, would you be offended if I had her call you?
I guess there's no harm in just talking to her.
Of course, you have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
In fact, Clint,
and I really don't know any locally that I would go to anyway.
Okay. Well, Clint, you know, it's important for you to know how much you qualify for and what kind of loan you're getting ahead of us going out to look. So that way we don't look at any houses that you either, are above your budget, or there's also special financing, and some homes don't qualify for that financing. So I don't want to go and show you something and then it turns out you can't buy it, and then now you're going to be mad at me.
I would be.
Yeah.
I would be.
Now, at this point in the conversation, I think it's important to stress the fact that you want to keep the buyer's best interest in heart. If you want the buyer to pay you, you're going to need to continuously demonstrate your value and show the buyer how following your system is best for them. So, Clint, it's really best for you to speak with that lender first before we look at property, because, if you can't afford it, then egg is on my face. We're going to be wasting time.
I
Good.
don't like that,
Excellent.
to have my time wasted.
Now, before we look at property, it's important that we meet to discuss current market conditions and to discover a strategy that will ensure that you buy the right house at the right price with the least hassle. So, I've got time today at 2 o'clock or tomorrow at 4 p.m. Which is better for you?
I don't have a. Can I call you back tomorrow? I don't have my calendar here in front of me.
Oh, sure. No, I can appreciate that. So, do you think that your afternoon is free? We can just pencil something in. And if that's a conflict, then we can revisit it. Call me back.
I think. Yeah, I think. we can
Okay,
do
so how
that.
about tomorrow at 2 o'clock?
Yeah, I think that would work. We can set that down. If not, I can call you back.
Yeah, of course.
That wouldn't work.
And here's an important question, Clint. Are there, all decision makers should attend our meetings. So are there any others in your life that are not going to be purchasing that also help you make a choice? Maybe a family member or a close friend?
My wife would want to, be involved in that conversation, I'm sure, and she won't get off until 5.
Okay. And so is your wife going to be a buyer also? Or is she just going to be a decision maker helper? Obviously, you want to make sure that you don't buy a house without your wife giving it the okay.
That's right.
Okay, so she gets off at 5 o'clock, and then can we meet at my office at 5:30? It's not far from you.
I think we could make that work.
Perfect. Okay, so then I will send you a text message with the time and the address and all that stuff, and I'll be there ahead of time waiting to meet you. I'm really looking forward to it. This is an exciting time for you.
Very excited. Very excited. I'm looking forward to our meeting, Peter. I guess we'll see you at 5:30.
Wonderful. Okay, so that went real smooth and easy. Sometimes they do not go that easy. So the buyer may say, I'm not ready yet, or I don't want to meet. So when they say they're not ready, they may say something along the lines of, we're just looking at this point. Or they might say that they're waiting on an event to occur, whether that is a wedding or a graduation or school to get out at the end of the year, or maybe they say they want interest rates to drop. So either way, this is all the same objection. They're not yet ready. So here's a quick script for that, which is, well, tell me, what does that look like? Let's explore. Talk to me. Tell me more. We can also say, let me ask you, Clint, if your dream home was available today, would you make a move now?
If I could afford it.
Sure. So if your dream home that fit your budget was available today, would you make a move now? Now, this script is fantastic because it gives some motivation to the buyer. Now, you as Clint, as being your first-time home buyer, you may say to me, I'm not shopping for my dream home. I'm just shopping for my first home. My dream home I can't afford yet. And if that's the case, then say, sure, no problem. If that first home that you're looking for that meets all of your criteria was available right now, would you make a move today? Most people will say yes. It hurries it up. Now, I also want to point out the fact that some buyers will tell you that they will be ready in 6 months or in 12 months. Whatever the number is that they say, you should cut that number in half, and that's about the time that they're going to start shopping. Many times agents call me and they're all upset because they said somebody told them they were going to buy in the spring, and then it turns out that they bought at Thanksgiving. And so now they call them in January or February, and it's too late. They've already purchased and moved in. Let's try a couple of other objections that a buyer may have at this point. They may say that they suffer from bad credit. Now, if we go back to that buyer flow chart here, we'll see that if they cannot qualify, then perhaps they're not ready now. They have financial reasons, or they've signed up with another agent. If they sign up with another agent, then you got to remove them from your campaign and stop calling them. But we can introduce them to a member of our posse, which is a finance coach. Perhaps the mortgage lender that you work with has got a program. Maybe they outsource it to a third-party vendor so that they can repair the credit. If that's the case, put the buyer into that position and get them rehabilitated so that they will become a buyer one day. If you are going to be an agent in 12, 24 months from now, then what you're doing is you're planting some seeds that can grow into buyers later. That's fantastic. I would also encourage you to go ahead and have the strategy session, even with a buyer who is not ready yet. See if you can't get them into the meeting so that they can understand what the process is, because we're going to just show them, as we discussed here, the market conditions, and we're going to discuss what it is they're looking for, their needs and wants in detail, and we're going to help them develop a strategy. Some buyers need to sell a house first. Some can buy a house before they sell their old one. We'll talk about those in another video. What if they say that they have a family member or a friend who is a real estate agent? Well, this objection is common. In fact, I laugh and say, that's not uncommon. Almost everyone has a real estate license. And so I'm sure that you know more than one family or friend that has a license. And my most important question to you is this: are they full-time? Is it somebody who has experience guiding buyers through the process? Now, even if you're new, if you've studied the book and you study the handbook and you study all the parts that are on this buyer mat and all the bullet points, and you understand the job, you've got a coach and you've got a mentor, then you are well advanced of the average real estate agent, especially a part-timer, because most of them will never go through all that studying and learning to try to do this the right way. But you are a professional who takes things seriously. So I understand your mom's an agent, but do you want your mom knowing the financial details of your life? Plus, let's just say that the agent that you hire turns out to not do their job very well. If that's your mom, how easy is it going to be to fire her? If I'm not doing my job right, you can fire me and move on to somebody else if I'm not meeting your needs. But if you fire your mother, you're probably going to drag it out longer than necessary. And when you finally do, boy, that Thanksgiving dinner this year is going to be quite uncomfortable. You're going to say mashed potatoes, and then you're going to have to duck as they come flying past you.
Yeah, it's a bad idea to fire mom.
You don't want to go firing mom, so it's probably best to not do business with mom to begin with. Some might say that I'm looking for a deal. I'm looking for a good deal. This is a common one that buyers might say, especially investors. The answer to this one is, I understand, but how do you define a good deal? What's a good deal to you? A good deal doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to buy something at less than its value, because you can't make a trade at less than its value. It's just not possible. So when you are satisfied with the purchase and you're happy with the price, that's a good deal. So I tell you what, before we look at property, it's best that we meet to discuss the current market conditions, plus a strategy to ensure that you buy the right house at the right price with the least hassle. Let's look in the handbook on page 171. Here's another script. Also, this handbook has been highlighted and it follows a legend as such. And if you would like to highlight your handbook in a similar manner, then make sure I've got the right little thing to play. Yes, here it is. Scribble it in the front inside flap of your handbook, just like this, so that it's always there for you. Okay, so you'll see that on page 171. In my experience, it's best that we meet before looking at any properties. During our meeting, we'll discuss your needs and your wants, specific strategies to acquire property, finance options, and other details that are related to your success. Remember, we want to keep the buyer's interest at heart. We want to make sure that they understand that all of our system, everything that goes into it, is for their benefit. This discussion will leave you informed of the current market and of options available to you, some of which you may not yet be aware. When our chat is done, we will mutually decide whether or not to work together. At the very least, you will leave our meeting feeling confident about the purchase price. So what do you say? Clint, what would you say if somebody said this to you?
I think I would have some comfort knowing that no matter what, I would know more about, the transaction I'm looking to make, whether I go with you as an agent or not. So I feel like there's value there that's being offered. You really don't have anything to lose sitting and listening to the presentation, whether you agree or not. Value is being given.
The only thing that they can lose is time. And a lot of buyers just want to go look at houses. That's what they do. In fact, buyers will spend up to, statistically, it says about 6 weeks looking at houses on the internet before ever contacting an agent. And so usually you're going to find out either the buyer's going to contact the listing agent or wherever his name is next to that listing that they're finding on a web page somewhere, or you're going to find them through word of mouth, just going out and talking. But buyers want to look at houses. That's what they're attracted to. It's kind of like if you go fishing, you need some bait. The listings are the bait that the buyers are interested in. They don't want to sit down and have a conversation. That's not really in their best interest. Well, it is in their best interest. It's not what they think is in their interest. They see it as a waste of time. But you are a professional who's going to provide them with lots of value and help them to buy the right house at the right price with the least hassle. If they say no to all of this, then here's more script. I highlighted this one because I think it's important. I provide a premium service with a system that helps buyers acquire property smoothly without hassle. You know, any monkey with a lockbox key can be a cab driver, but only a skilled agent can guide you through the jungle of a transaction. You need somebody on your team. I would love to be that person. Let me be your guide. I'll be your Sherpa. I'll make sure you don't step in any potholes. Now, let us go back to the script, Matt, because there are other objections. Perhaps a buyer says to you, I don't want to pay your fee. What about this commission stuff that I see that's in the news? And that buyers have to pay the commissions, and I don't want to pay the commission. I don't see value in an agent, or they say I can't afford that. No problem. This is the premature fee script. This is when they ask about the fee before you've demonstrated your value fully. I recommend that you do not discuss who or how or what or how you're getting paid or by who or for how much until after you have demonstrated to them that you are the agent that they really want. So here's the script. I'm affordable and worth every penny. But first, let's meet up to ensure that your real estate goals match my abilities. Then we'll discuss my fee. Remember, we're going to discuss the current market conditions, and we're going to discuss strategies for you so that you can buy the right house at the right price with the least hassle. Now, notice that I keep repeating this. This is a short little script that you should, in one way or another, have committed to your mind so that you can repeat it over and over, because this is ultimately what it is. If nothing else, you will walk away from our meeting having a better understanding of the market, some strategies to acquire property, plus have a real understanding of what it is that you're looking for. A lot of buyers will say, I know what I want. Once we get to the needs analysis that we'll look at in, I believe it's episode number 4, then we're gonna show how it is that the buyer oftentimes has not considered any conflicting needs or wants and how we're going to resolve those so that when they go into the field, they're actually studying with a good eye exactly what it is they're looking for.
Peter, I like this premature fee script because you're not just begging for business. You are trying to show that you want to demonstrate your value first. You want to demonstrate your knowledge, your value, before you hit them with your commission pitch so they can see what they're, at least get a glimpse into what they would get from hiring you, particularly you, specifically you, and not just any old agent that would just come and beg for the job.
Yeah, don't discuss your commission until you've demonstrated your value. This is important. Don't put the cart before the horse and then ask the horse to walk backwards. Because once you start talking numbers and start telling them about your fee, then they're going to have built-in excuses. You'll find that they will shade away from you real fast. However, I think that it is worth saying, I'm affordable and worth every penny. You see, this shows that it's not going to be astronomical. Plus, we're going to discuss in more detail about how it is that you can get paid from who. Maybe you get some from the buyer, some from the seller. There's going to be different ways that we can structure this and how you're going to get your commission. It's not a good idea to discuss this before you make your pitch. before you show the buyer that, demonstrate to them that you are the agent that they want on their team to walk them through the process. Now, also keep in mind that not every buyer is going to go for all of this, and that's okay. You're going to lose some. Not every prospect is going to turn into a client. You most likely don't have time to help every buyer you have ever met actually buy a house. Nor would you want to. Some of them are a real pain in the ass. Some of them are just going to waste your time. This system is going to help weed those people out, rehabilitate them, and get them on the path, that righteous path to home ownership. Same question if they ask, will you reduce your commission? All right, let's see where we're at. Let's go and look back in the handbook at the pre-qualification. This is page 170. So once again, this is highlighted in yellow because it is a script. The script is, are you already working with an agent? If they say no, then you go to step 2, ask about the money. If they say yes, have you signed anything? You'll also see that on the script mat here, that script is when they say, are you already working with an agent? Have you signed anything? Do you have exclusive agency? This is important now because we are required, and we've always been required, by the way, to have something in writing before we go and show a buyer property, before we give them agency, before we discuss all those details. This is going to become even more important now because you are required, even though you were before, it was not really custom practice amongst agents in this industry. Have you signed anything with another agent? They will oftentimes say no. They might say that someone showed them houses. They met somebody at open house. They went to a seminar. They ate some cookies and drank some sweet tea. But that doesn't mean that they're actually committed to that agent. So it's like they are up for grabs. And so you want to be able to escort them through the process. Even if they say, yes, I'm already working with the agent, I've signed something, I am committed to that buyer, as that agent as my buyer. Do you have any property that needs to be sold? Just because they've signed agency with a buyer agent doesn't mean that they have agency with that same agent or a different one to list their house for sale.
That was the side that I had never thought of. I think I would have, before I read that, as soon as they told me they were working with somebody, I would have said, back away. I wouldn't have thought to ask about if they had anything they wanted to sell. And probably as somebody brand new would have thought maybe I was stepping on toes or crossing a line by doing so.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned this because I've seen many times where the buyer / seller, they need to sell their property as well, but the agent that they've already hired to either list or buy with, they haven't helped the buyer / seller discover a strategy and commit to something as to whether or not they're going to buy one first and then sell theirs. Some people can afford to do so, others cannot. Even some people who can afford it, they choose not to because they don't want to have overlapping payments, and I can't blame them. So there are strategies that we can help them is to sell first and then buy. You might want to do a sell and buy and a back-to-back closing on the same day or maybe separated by one day. That can be tricky to thread the needle, but it can be done. It's a good idea to have a strategy for them so that they can not get left high and dry. Plus, let's say that they have a listing agent with somebody else and you're going to be their buyer's agent. If that property is overpriced and they're ready to buy, then you need to have that conversation with them about maybe reducing the property. What I would do is not overstep your bounds, because if you're hired to be their buyer's agent and they have a listing agent, and you don't want to step on the toes of the listing agent. Call the listing agent, say, I'm working with them as a buyer. Let's work together on this strategy so that we can help them to get that one sold and get moved into the new one. You can cooperate on things. So just like we discussed on the script mat, it says in the handbook here, step 2, do you plan to borrow money from a bank, or will you be writing a big fat check for that purchase? Now, I want to point out this one. Would you be offended if I shared your phone number with my favorite mortgage gal and then she called you? Now, notice I say, would you be offended? That's because most people are just going to say, no, I won't be offended. You could ask, is it okay if you don't want to use the word offended? But don't say, you can call my mortgage lender. Also, a lot of agents, we'll look over here on the side, a lot of agents will have a practice of giving 3 names of mortgage officers. Here, call all 3 of these. I think that's a bad idea. You'll see here it says, as a consultant to the buyer, recommend 1 mortgage officer, but stress the fact that buyer may choose anyone. If you give a buyer 3 names and numbers for them to go and call and get pre-qualified, I can tell you in my experience that they're not going to call any of them. They just won't do it. Now, I know that agents in the past have always had this practice. I don't want to be responsible for them getting a bad loan or a mortgage officer that's not good for them. Pick somebody. Pick somebody who gives great service, become buddies with them as a mortgage officer, and send all of your business to them. Somebody who gives excellent service, somebody who will answer the phone, somebody who will pre-qualify them fast, somebody who has a great bedside manner. And then say to them, if I was purchasing a home, I would use this mortgage officer. You can use anybody you like. You can borrow money from whomever. However, in my experience, this person is good, and that's who I recommend. And so I will have them call you. Would you be offended if I have them call you this afternoon? This gets the job done. We want them pre-qualified before we meet. If they have yet to be pre-qualified by the time our meeting begins, that's okay. The first thing we're going to do is have them on the phone with the mortgage officer or have the mortgage officer present. So call the mortgage officer and say, hey, I'm going to be meeting with them tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Are you available at that time so that I can hand them the phone? We can put it on speaker and they can get pre-qualified.
And this saves you from wasting your time and theirs, right? Because I can see a situation where someone who's not familiar with the process feels like an agent did them wrong, wasted their time because they didn't really understand what they were doing. Somebody that, put them in the car, drove them around, did all those extra things like you said earlier without pre-qualifying. Aren't you kind of setting yourself up for wasting your time and theirs?
Yes. Becoming pre-qualified before we would look is extremely important for 2 reasons that we discussed in the beginning of this video. Number 1 is that if I show you property that's outside of your budget and you fall in love with it and later we find that there's that budgetary constraint, you're not going to like anything else after that. It's a lot easier to look at properties that are lower in your budget and then go higher. If you start higher and then you have to go lower, oftentimes buyers become disgruntled, disillusioned. It sours the whole process. So I like to tell them, remember, it's always in their best interest. All of this is what's good for them. It's not good for you to go looking at properties before we know what your budget is. And they can't just guess. They can't just guess. The other thing is that oftentimes buyers will have a strike on their credit that they're unaware of. Maybe something they thought they paid off in the past, but it's still showing on their credit. This will give them time to take care of those things before we go and make an offer. Sometimes it can take a few months to get that stuff fixed. So the sooner, the better.
Yeah, it's easy to wreck your credit. It's not easy to fix your credit. It takes a lot of time. A second, one missed payment to wreck your credit. But that can take years.
That's true for anything. It's a lot more difficult and time consuming to build something than it is to tear it down.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
All right, so let me check my notes. We've invited the decision makers. Okay, so I'm not sure if we went over this script. I want to make sure that we are a bit more comprehensive. Is that if you are having a hard time getting them to set this appointment and they say, well, I've got this other decision maker that needs to be at the meeting, or I don't know what their schedule is, then say, that's okay. We will pencil it in now for tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and you check with your spouse, you check with your friend, your other decision maker, and have them let me know if that's not good at that time. Also, I want to point out that this can be done over the internet if necessary with a Zoom style meeting, but it's best if you meet in person. Okay, now another one is that a lot of times the buyer will say, I've picked out a house. I just want to look at this one. Can you show it to me? Well, in the past, I would suggest that agents will make that deal. Try to get them to come to the meeting. If they insist on just looking at that one, make a deal with them that, yes, I'll go show you that first property. But if that one is not the one that you want to make an offer on, then let's agree ahead of time that we will meet. In fact, we can go meet directly after we look at that house. So our appointment to do a strategy session to help ensure that you buy the right house at the right price with the least hassle can commence post haste. Nowadays, because of the NAR ruling, then you have to have something in writing. And so if you cannot get them to sign agency that fast over the phone through the email, then you should use a customer agreement form, which just simply says that the buyer is acknowledging in writing that they're not my client, that they're acting as a customer, and you may or may not be guaranteed payment this way. There is a box for you to enter commission fee into the customer form, and you could either sign that or sign an agency that has a stipulation that has the address of this just one property, that the buyer is ensuring that you will get paid a commission so long as they purchase that one address. Okay, so now we've got ourselves an appointment scheduled. We need to get ready for our meeting. We want them to meet at a place that is nice and convenient, that everybody will be happy to be distraction free. Maybe it's your office. Perhaps maybe you can meet in a restaurant. If you do that, I would suggest that you go during the daytime when it's less busy, and maybe they have a separate section in the back. If you find a restaurant that you can do this with all the time, maybe they've got a private room, then become a regular customer of theirs, and you can be afforded to use that private room. Order something to drink, something to eat. A few beers might actually make this a lot easier for them to sign. And then send them a text message to remind them of the meeting, and also to make sure that they do not squirm out at the last minute. So several hours ahead of the meeting, maybe the morning of the meeting, send a text message reminding them, saying that you're excited about that. Here's another tool from the box set. It's called a billboard. And what this does is it lets you keep track of all of your prospects and your clients and what part in the process that they are. So once you've set that meeting, then you're going to want to take out your dry erase pen and start a new column for your new client. So I will put your name here as Clint. Now you can use all different kinds of colors to shade these in. You'll notice that Clint is a buyer, so I'm going to shade in the buyer part. Now, one of the questions that I can ask Clint on the phone is, Clint, do you have a deadline? When are you looking to move?
By the end of the year.
By the end of the year. So I'll just put end of year. Year's end. Okay, now we've had our first discussion, and I've introduced pre-qualification. We haven't had our presentation yet. We haven't signed agency yet, so we don't have an expiration of that agency, and we haven't submitted any documents to our broker yet. So the rest of these things are going to be left blank at this stage of the game, and we're going to check back with this later. But the neat thing is that we can keep this 11 by 17 inch mat on our desk, or it can be on the wall hanging there, so that we can look at a glance to make sure that we know all the stuff that about Clint. I can also mark on here the date and time for our meeting. It's going to be at 5:30 tomorrow. Now, the thing is, I would actually put the date on there. This way you can know that that's the time that you're supposed to meet. Obviously, you would put it in some other type of calendar, but that's there as well.
One thing that I'll
go for it.
One thing that I like so much about this is that, for me, as somebody brand new, even more than going out and prospecting and talking to people. I fear missing a step, skipping a step, forgetting something that I did or didn't do along the way. So I like this a lot as a way to track where I'm at, what I've done, what I've not done, what I still need to do. I really like this a lot. That helps give me some reassurance that I'll be able to keep up with where I'm at and see what I still need to do to, maintain and get to closing the transaction.
You now have a system. Your system is made and custom designed to help buyers achieve their goal, their real estate dreams, to help them find that right house at the right price with the least hassle. Step by step, all these tools that we're going to be talking about are designed specifically for that purpose. Explain that to the buyer. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Remember to keep it in their best interest. You're going to get paid. Don't worry about that part. We're going to make sure. And they're going to be happy to guarantee your fee by the time this is all said and done. In fact, in the next, we're going to discuss, let's pull up that one. We're going to discuss next the strategy session. The strategy session is when we're actually going to sit, do the consultation. It's got 3 parts to it. The first part is in the next video. We're going to demonstrate our value. We're going to go over all the steps that the buyer is going to experience, and we're going to make sure that they become aware. The second part of the strategy session is going to be the needs analysis. This is where you're going to really demonstrate your value. And then the third part of the strategy session is where we actually sign the agency and we discuss the market conditions. This is when they're going to guarantee our fee. We're going to wrap up with all of those things and make them feel comfortable. And they're going to, by the end of this meeting, which will last about 45 minutes to an hour, they're going to be so happy with you that they're jumping at the chance. Now, I'll tell you that I had an agent one time back in the day, and she was brand new, had never had a client. When I say brand new, she'd been 2 years in the business, never had a client, never had a closing. And I introduced the system to her. She signed in 30 days. She signed 30 buyers to agency, each one of them guaranteeing her fee by using just the system that we're talking about here. So I know that it works. Now, the end of the story with that is I think only 5 of those buyers ended up closing. But I encouraged her to keep going forward anyway, even if the buyers didn't qualify or if they flaked out at some point, because you need the practice. It's not a bad thing to do 30 buyer consultations in 30 days and go through the steps. You get rid of all of your nerves, you get rid of your fears, and you'll get good at it. And that's the whole point of this, is that if you want to be a professional, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to go through the motions. If you're only doing this once a month, it's going to take a long time to be good at it. Also want to point out one more time that you can come to the website, join.realestate, and buy the box set. You can buy these parts a la carte or all together. You can also get your hands on a free download. I say free, but you got to give me your email address. But you will do the same anyway to see the rest of the videos. So we'll see you on the next one. Clint, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Peter.